So what was announced today that caused the NASDAQ market and really overall markets to have one of the biggest screen days of 2023? What's going on, team? It's Ricky with TechBot Solutions here with a super quick stock market update. I hope that I answer any questions you might have about what happened today. And if so, please make sure you drop a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you feel like we earned it. Let's go ahead and talk about the overall NASDAQ market. TQQQ with a nice push, 7.92%, an insane day. The market did not give, making higher highs and higher lows throughout the overall day. This kind of reminds me, and again, if you guess I've been here long enough, this kind of reminds me of the NASDAQ market back in 2020 and 2021. It was beautiful to see. I took a loss today. I lost a little bit over $1,300. I had a small position at SQQQ. I opened it during my live trading session with my LPP team. I closed out a part of it. I left a part of it open. I told my team that I was going to stay light, and the market just never gave, right? I stayed extremely light. It was less than a 1% position based off of what I normally trade with. So again, scared money doesn't make money. I just wanted to make sure that I manage my risk, and a way to manage my risk is to manage my position size. With that being said, let's go ahead and just answer that question. What was announced today that really caused a lot of buying pressure, right? A lot of certainty, especially with everything that's going on with inflation, with the possible idea of the Federal Reserve no longer raising interest rates as aggressive or completely pausing them. And then, of course, with all the banks failing, what's going on? So one of the first things that I want to cover is that the market turned positive after CNBC David Faber reported that a group of banks would deposit $30 billion in First Republic. So for those that are unaware, First Republic, if I'm not mistaken, is the bank that was set in New York, First Republic, and it was the second bank or banking institution that showed signs of failure, right? I think they had $110 billion under management. The whole thing when it comes down to Credit Suisse, they followed up with this and saying that Credit Suisse had an overnight announcement that it will borrow nearly $54 billion from Swiss National Bank. But again, Credit Suisse was also one of the global banking institutions that reported and or was flashing red, very similar to Silicon Valley Bank, right? Credit Suisse, if I'm not mistaken, was the second largest bank in Switzerland. So it looks like a lot of these different banks that are flashing red and showing signs of failure, banks are coming together to pretty much save them, right? Because there's kind of this ripple effect that if one fails, it can instill fear in more banks, right? And think about it, right? If more banks begin to show signs of potential failure, what do people like you and I begin to do, right? Well, if they only insure supposedly up to $250,000, then this is most likely going to encourage me to potentially not trust the bank that I'm banking with maybe as much as I originally did, and possibly pulling my money out. And if enough people begin to ask for their money back, then guess what? You think all these banks have your money, if you just go to a branch? Definitely not, right? And that can lead to a much, I would say, worse situation with everything that's going on. So it makes sense on why they're trying to help each other. They're trying to really pause and put a stop to that ripple effect of more banks showing signs of failure. One of the other things that we want to cover is what we covered in today's earlier video, and it's with what was announced through the European Central Bank, so the ECB live stream that they had in Europe, they had their interest rate hike today, just like we have next week by Jerome Powell, who is the head of the Federal Reserve. They announced their interest rate hike today, and we actually live streamed it during my live trading session with the LPP team, and they announced a 50 basis point interest rate hike. So that was what the original expectation was for them. And that was what the expectation was being set for us as well. But because of everything that's going on with the banks, it is now to be understood that the Federal Reserve will only be raising interest rates 0.25% and or nothing at all. The idea behind that is that if they continue to raise interest rates, it can cause more and or larger banks to potentially fail. And the ripple effects of that is probably something that we don't want to experience. I'm not the biggest fan of saving these banks because at the end of it, it just gives them another reason to continue to do what they're doing. And that's being extremely aggressive, knowing that there's always going to be some form of bailout for them. But also, I respect it because then people like you and I don't lose all of our money, right? We just, again, it's very frustrating that they take the risk, but when it comes down to potentially failing, they end up getting bailed out because of how large they are, right? And them failing is much worse for our overall economy than them being saved. So it's an unfortunate scenario for sure. But again, what we have for next week when it comes down to economic reports, nothing super significant. We have a couple that are released about 15 minutes before the market opens. And then we have some that are some economic reports that are released 30 minutes after the market opens, including the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. When it comes down to next week, I do want to remind you that Wednesday, March 22nd, will be the FOMC meeting. And this is when they're going to be announcing the interest rate hike for the Federal Reserve, if it's 0.25%, if it's 50 basis points, and or if it's nothing at all. So again, that's going to be next week on Wednesday. I will be live streaming it. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the channel, turn on your post notifications, subscribe, and I'll keep you up to date. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me via Discord or via Instagram. And that's the first or third link in the description down below. And I do want to remind you, I do trade live with one team and one team only, and that is my Learn, Plan, Profit team. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access, and yes, you do get to watch me trade live every single day for at least 30 minutes to an hour at market open. So if you want to see what that's like, then click that second link down below, learn a little bit more about it, and see if it's a good fit for you. I do want to remind you that all new members do get automatically entered, of course, for our Nissan GTR giveaway or $50,000 cash. And this would earn you 5,000 entries just by signing up for LBP 2.0, which of course, second link down below. If you guys want to enter another way, again, you guys can head on over to shoptechbuds.com. And for every $1 that you spend, it equals 5 automatic entries. So everything from GTR apparel to overall accessories, whatever the case might be, mouse pads, wall art, it's all available at shoptechbuds.com or the fourth link in the description down below. I appreciate your time. Hope that we earned a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take it easy, team.